All right, welcome back. And as you already know, I'm training for my next tournament. I haven't played like in 2 years, and I made you part of it by sharing the critical positions that I'm working on. And I'll tell you more why I like the book that I'm working on for tournament preparation, right? But anyhow, I showed you the answer to the specific position that I was analyzing yesterday. And now in this video, I'm going to show you the entire game. Very instructive. We are getting into this closed Sicilian after e4, c5 Sicilian because white played knight c3, g3. We call it the closed Sicilian. But in my mind, this is no other than the Vienna with the fianchetto variation, right? So after g3, pawn to d5, the whole strategic plan begins to take shape. And in here, the white pieces played e takes d5, e takes d5, and now all the focus is going to be on the d5 pawn. It cannot be defended by a friendly pawn because they're already pushed, so it's not necessarily a weak pawn. They could always push it forward. But as you should know by now, every time we move a pawn in chess, we create weaknesses. There's no way around it. So after bishop g2, putting pressure on the pawn, knight f6, now we have the move pawn to d3. Many times we see knight g to e2, but d3 is a very interesting move because now we're saying, hey, this knight that is defending d5, I'm ready to go after it with my bishop. And then black is going to at least be a little bit uncomfortable or finally push, which creates weaknesses. They allow us to open up the bishop. They give us these key squares for our pieces. So after d3, we got pawn to d4 immediately. They're not even going to allow us to play bishop g5. And then after 94, we have the first question. And then anytime I'm working on this book and the author says, hey, your turn, how would you recapture? I set a timer that I have here with me for 7 minutes in critical moments. This one doesn't require 7 minutes, but I want to make sure that I calculate and make my decision in 7 minutes. If I don't do it in 7 minutes, then I just pick a move and that's what I'll play just to be practical and not burn too much time. So here you either take with the pawn or with the bishop. I anytime will have taken with the bishop, but the move played was d takes e4. And the whole point is to have a pawn in the center on e4 controlling that weak square in black territory. And of course, I just want this knight to fly and get to d5. They don't have a pawn to ever kick me out. So d takes e4. The black pieces being a very strong grandmaster too, they decided not to allow that, or at least to prepare for it. So instead of playing knight c6, they're going to wait to bring the knight to d7, to f6, and control that square. So bishop e7, knight goes to e2. You can see how that knight is looking for the right squares to get to the center of the board. That in itself is not going to win the game, but that's what this is about. We get a small advantage and we turn it into something bigger and bigger, and eventually you get a better position, you win the game, right? So castle, castle, knight to d7, and then another critical moment that you're free to pause the video as we go through these critical moments. But now we got to make a decision. Now, a few things that stood out for me as I tried to work on it, and then I looked at the answer. The one of the student in this book, and we have the student and we have the grandmaster giving the explanations. The student actually suggested pawn to f4, which is a very natural move. Something that me being a Kinsinian defense player, Pierce defense player, Vienna fianchetto player, I like these pawn storms and so on, right? But Gulko is like, look, man, that's a disaster because you are interfering with the improvement of your pieces. In general, we improve pieces before pawns. Pieces are the better ones, the more aggressive ones, improve that. Also, bishop f4 takes this square away from the knight. We need it. So instead of doing so, the white pieces said, look, I don't like this center that you have. I'm glad that you gave me the d5 square, but I don't want you to have this pawn restricting me so much. And because you blocked the queen, now I'm going to go pawn to c3. And basically, if you don't take me, well, I'm going to take you. That's it. Simple as that. So they took, and the knight is going to get to d5 via f4 or via c3 and d5. And this shows us how, if we know what we're looking for, every decision becomes easier. Even if it's a bad plan, we want to have a plan and it guides us. This is what a lot of you are looking for. You think it's just memorizing opening lines for 25 moves, but in reality, if you understand these little concepts, you have guidance through general chess principles. So knight to c3, bishop f6, we get to another critical moment. And here I paused and I thought about it and I ended up deciding on knight to d5 because, hey, after all this time, well, that's what we wanted. But it is true. I decided on it being aware that black could play bishop d4. And that was going to be a pretty annoying bishop, probably even more annoying than my powerful knight on d5. So that was my decision. But the white pieces, being a super strong GM, played bishop e3. That's it. I'm not going to give you anything, and I still have my square. So bishop took, pawn took. Right now, this is welcome to the real world, like I tell my students. We talk so much about the pawn structure, isolated pawn. But in turn, we have compensation because we get to keep the bishop pair. Now, I know how it feels. Some of you are not that familiar, and this game hopefully helps you with that, but you're not that comfortable with the bishop pair. Yeah, I have it. Now I have the bishop pair and they don't. But what do I do with it? And then you probably end up losing pawns and so on. I feel you. I was there myself, but as you reinforce that, as you go through games like this, when you play it more, you're going to get more comfortable with it. So we have to close our eyes and trust the principles. Isolated pawns, but we got the bishop pair. Okay, for in general, bishop pair means try to keep the position open, no pawns in the center. That way the bishops have more scope. And then, very important, it's something that I reinforce myself with this game, where the author keeps saying the bishop pair becomes more and more and more powerful as we get to the end game. The less pieces, the better. The more pieces on the board, the more um, you could undermine those bishops because there's so many things going on, right? And you have the bishop pair, but there are other things going on, like an attack on your king, things like that. So if you remove all of that, all of the noise, and you leave the bishop pair, they're just two killer whales, if you want. So after b takes e3, queen a5, of course, going for the weak pawn right away. And then this is exactly the position that I posted everywhere: Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. And then some of you got it right. Someone said queen to d5 is the move. So after queen to d5, we have a queen that is centralized, and this knight cannot really move because then c5 falls. The downside, or the one thing that you might be wondering is, hey, what about the pawn? Well, this is one of those scenarios where, again, like I explained in the short, you gotta close your eyes and say, if you take that, I'm gonna gain a tempo on the queen. I'm gonna improve all of my pieces. And I'm sorry, my friend, but with all of my pieces active or developed and yours not, I gotta have something. I just need to put pressure. I either checkmate you or you give me material back. You gotta trust the principles. So in the game, they played rook e8, rook f to d1 to the open file. Then they took the pawn indeed. Here's when I said, close your eyes and enjoy the fact that you have all of your pieces active. Now, very important moment. This one I didn't get it right. It did not even cross my mind. Feel free to pause and think of what you'd play as the white pieces. I activated my timer for 7 minutes and I couldn't find it. The move that white played was pawn to e5. Very interesting move. Basically, they're saying this pawn on e5 gives me so much space. And when I play f4, that's going to be a monster combined with my two bishops, my rooks on the open files. I don't know what it is going to be, but it's something's going to come out of it. So for that reason, the black pieces ended up taking the pawn. Now, this is what it was so counterintuitive that I didn't even consider it because it's attacked twice. But if they had taken with the knight, well, we simply take on c5, and then the queen doesn't really have many squares to go to. Going to b6, of course, it puts you on the same diagonal as my bishop, and I could just take on c8. Thank you for the queen. If the queen goes, let's say, to a4, I think the move was rook to d4. Queen goes, let's say, to d7. Give me that. I'm hitting your queen. And the thing is, the back rank is always going to be a problem. Like if they take now, then we're going to go rook takes e5. And I'm sorry, but you're going to give me the queen or you're going to get checkmated on the back rank. And why? Because the lack of development, this rook is never able to participate. Let's say the queen goes to, I don't know, c7, this is mate. Going to here, 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 not available because of the rooks and the bishop. And I hope this illustrates how active pieces are so powerful. That's it. They have to give you the queen, you're up a piece, right? Instead, in the game after queen a5, e5, they took with the rook. Now we take, knight takes, and then rook to c5. It is just too much. The same thing, you gotta defend d8 or you get checkmated. They wish they had developed this bishop earlier. If you go to b6, again, you could look into taking the bishop, or I think even stronger, give me that, I'm hitting the queen, and you have the same problem with the back rank. So because of that, after taking the rook, knight takes, rook takes e5, we got queen takes, bishop takes, and we got into this endgame where we got the bishop pair extremely active with the rook. And now black has to decide, are you going to leave these guys undeveloped, or are you going to get them out and drop the pawn on b7? So bishop took on b7, and then bishop took on d1. And this move was marked as a mistake. And the reason being is that, again, I said it in the beginning, the two bishops, the bishop pair, becomes stronger and stronger as less pieces are on the board. So black should have tried to keep the rooks at least, but after everything is liquidated, those bishops are just controlling everything. So a6, and now time for the white pieces to move. Very important. Something that I like to do if I'm playing this in a game is take a moment and give myself time to adjust. Okay, you know what? I just transitioned from the middle game to the end game. If you remember when we talked about the 3 rooms method, we have room number 1, room number 2, room number 3, and each one of them has principles that we need to follow. Right now, I have to activate the king. It is an end game. Number 2, my bishops mean nothing if I don't find targets for those bishops, right? So after bishop b7, see, target, that's a weak pawn, I'm going after it. Bishop e2, f4, not so much because I want to attack the knight, but because I want to activate the king. And it's nice to open up the king with a tempo. Knight to d7, this next move, I hope it comes to you automatically because I have mentioned it so many times on this channel. I want to have my bishop 2 squares away from that knight, and that's how we control it. So this is automatic. If I'm playing a game and I have 3 seconds left, I don't have to think about this move. That's it. We're cutting off that knight because we put the bishop 2 squares away from it. So king f8, bishop d5. Bishop d5, the idea is to not let the enemy bishop get on this diagonal. It's a very good diagonal. It's hitting our pawn. So bishop d5, activate the king, bishop b7. You see, the moment the bishop leaves, we go for the target. We know we're not going to get it, but it is really nice to keep our opponent uncomfortable, babysitting little pawns, things like that. These bishops have to be a nightmare. Now, bishop e6, should we accept the trade of pawns? Of course not. If I trade too many pawns, I'm not going to have pawns to promote in the end. The rule of simplification says if you're ahead, you trade down pieces, knights, bishops, rooks, queens, but you don't trade pawns. So we push the pawn to a square opposite to the color of this bishop. So a3, they came over and defended, and now king to e3. We keep improving the king, we keep improving the king. Now, one thing that I'm going to throw in here, and we covered this, we've talked about it on the YouTube channel, but I really made a big deal about it in the Chessable course. One weakness is simply not enough. We already have a weakness right here, but the defending side typically has it very easy to defend that one weakness. So whenever you see you're now making progress, you gotta try to create a second weakness on the other side of the board. So that's why instead of king e3, maybe g4, and try to go for this weak pawn on h5. The move g4, and I think they play it in a few moves, automatically makes this pawn a permanent weak pawn. And the reason being is it will never be able to move and be defended by a friendly pawn. G4, if they ever move it here, it's still not defended by a friendly pawn. If they go to H5, well, we're going to take it, and it's a weak pawn at the end of the day. And I know you might be saying, okay, but white also has weak pawns, but they don't have the bishop pair, which is a killer chasing isolated pawns, right? So these pawns have to be terrified because the bishop pair is out there on an open board. So anyways, king e3, king e7, bishop c3, bishop b5, pawn to g4. King e8, passive king, active king. Bishop e2, pawn to g5. And this is, I hope you're very familiar with, the one pawn that stops 3, straight out of the course. Why is it the one pawn that stops 3? Because this one is stopped, of course. And then these 2 pawns, we have the pawn that could take it. This one, for example, if they go here, I take it. If they go 2 steps, we have en passant. I hope I pronounced it close to the French pronunciation. So yeah, this is a nice pattern to have. Then after king e7, bishop e4 check, go back to being passive. My king is active. And look, if I'm playing this game, I could be here for 25 years, just letting it marinate, putting pressure. Your opponent is going to suffocate and they will make a mistake. Maybe they push the wrong pawn, things like that. So be okay with it. You don't have to finish the game in the next 10 moves. Enjoy this pressure. That's it. If you're doing wrestling or judo and you're pinned down and I keep you there for 10 minutes, you're going to collapse sooner or later, right? So that's where they are right now. A4, bishop attacks the pawn, just like they should. And now we play a5, going to another dark square, away from this bishop. But more importantly, we're fixing this pawn on a6. Bishop e2, bishop c6, we're pinning the knight. That's it. I don't even know how we're going to win this, but I know I have the active pieces. You have the passive, uncomfortable, pinned pieces. King d8, bishop d5, putting pressure on the weak pawn. They defended, back to pinning it. Now, this repetition could be the result of both players getting low on time. This is the end game. But I also want to think it's wide, giving them the opportunity to make a mistake. All right, you're going to defend? Show me. If not, well, bring the bishop over next to each other. Look how you create this cone. If you remember when we learned the 2 bishop checkmate, you should be familiar with this pattern. Now, after king e8, we got to talk about one of the main benefits of having the bishop pair, which is you get to decide when you get rid of it. And you want to get rid of it when it's favorable for you. So after bishop d5, f6, bishop c4, either you trade or you move away and I get the pawn. And now you can see how we end up with an active king and a powerful knight that, a powerful bishop that controls the enemy knight. That knight cannot go anywhere right now. And that's why after f takes, the black pieces resigned. Feel free to take this position. I'm going to leave the PGN in the description. Copy it, paste it, finish it against the engine, see if you can convert. But essentially, we're just going to bring the king over, collect the pawn, and push. Or if the king comes over, well, you could go to the other side and collect the pawns and push. And that said, my friends, I know it's not as exciting as when you train tactics, but we have to little by little work on these soft skills, these little concepts, and they will, at the very least, get you a good position that eventually will lead to tactics. So there you have it, all about that d5 square, and then turning that into active pieces, and then turning that into the bishop pair, and then walking into an end game. With that said, I will be playing the US Masters at the end of the month. I will keep you posted with my training, what I'm doing. So let me know in the comments if you think that's a good idea or just leave it alone and do some other kind of content.